Hey, welcome to a fun, practical exercise lesson. Today I'm showing you how to take an ordinary cross dissolve like this one and turn it into something a little bit more special like this one. So it's kind of hard for you to see the differences, but this one is just your normal cross dissolve. This is a cross dissolve with a custom blur transition added, and we're going to be creating this custom transition with the blur effect and animated keyframes. So go ahead and download the practice files in this lesson. There's a zip file with Anthony Clip 1 and Anthony Clip 2. These are two shots that we shot with the Osmo camera. It's a cool little Steadicam camera. And import them into a brand new Premiere Pro project or wherever you want to practice. Now, since we haven't learned a lot of the aspects that I'm going to be teaching in this lesson, including using effects and adding keyframes, I'm just going to walk through it with you right now, and then I'll have you do it at the very end. I'm just going to drag Anthony Clip 1 into a new sequence, into this new item button down here, and then put the Anthony Clip 2 next to it, just like so. Now they are butted up against each other. I'm going to then drag in the end of this first clip to about, let's play through this, and there you see this kid in the background trying to do a kickflip. He goes, jumps, almost lands it, something right there. And then with this next clip, I'm going to drag it just before we see this lady right here walking, and Anthony has to go around her. So drag it in right there. And then just move these to butt up against each other. So before I add the cross dissolve, I'm going to add a blur effect. So if you go to your effects bin, if you don't see that, go up to Window, Effects. In the search bar, just type in Fast Blur. You'll see Fast Blur pop up down here, and simply drag and drop it onto the video clip on your timeline, starting with Anthony Clip 1. And we can also go ahead and do it on Anthony Clip 2. If you see now in our Effects Controls tab that pops up, we have this Fast Blur effect. If we increase the blurriness number from 0 to, well, just up, the video gets more or less blurry. 0 means no blur at all. So we want to create an actual animation of this blur from 0 to, say, about 50 or so. So just put your timeline indicator just anywhere on this clip and set a keyframe for 0. The way we set a keyframe is by clicking this little time stopwatch right here that says toggle animation. And then I'm going to go forward in this clip by pressing the shift button on my keyboard and then right arrow key 3 times. We'll just try that for now. And you can see that our timeline indicator moved ahead about 15 frames. And then change the blurriness number, just click on it like so, and type in 50. You'll notice that the edge of this clip gets a little bit dark, and that's just what happens when you blur it. So we're going to click this Repeat Edge Pixels, which will repeat the edge pixels, the video part of the edge, so that you don't get this blur, this dark blur. Now if we go back on our timeline, either by clicking down here on the timeline or up here in the timeline of the effects controls, we can see that we go from 0 blur to blur. Kind of cool, right? We're going to do the same thing. We're going to move these keyframes around later on so it's in the right spot of the clip. But let's just go ahead and add the same type of effect for this second clip. But instead of going from no blur to blur, we're going to go from 50 blur. So I'm going to set this to 50, click the stopwatch, and then shift right arrow 3 times or so, and then change the 50 to 0. So now it goes from the start of the clip. I'm going to click Repeat Edge Pixels. And if I play through this, it goes from blurry to unblurry. Now let's add the default transition. So I'm just going to right click and say Apply Default Transition. So now if we play through this, we get this cross dissolve, but we have to move the keyframes of the blur to the right spot. So I'm going to actually first just drag this, select Anthony Clip 1. I'm going to drag the second keyframe up here for 50 blurriness and drag it all the way to the right. Then I'm going to put my timeline indicator right here at the start of the cross dissolve and put the first keyframe right there. And then with this Anthony Clip 2, just select Anthony Clip 2 and drag the first keyframe all the way to the left to the start of the clip. Put your timeline indicator at the end of the cross dissolve and drag that keyframe right there. So now let's play through this. And that's pretty good. The blur isn't as pronounced as I would like. And one way to make it more pronounced is either increasing the blurriness of the second keyframe or just making it start to blur before the cross dissolve. And to do that, I'm just going to drag this first keyframe of Anthony Clip 1 a little bit forward so it starts to blur a little bit. And then with the second one, drag the second keyframe for blurriness 0 out a little bit as well. So now it starts to get a little bit blurry and it stays a little bit blurry and gets into focus after the cross dissolve. So that's how you can create a custom transition, and you can do that with all kinds of effects. We're going to learn about more effects later on, but if you go through any of these video effects down here, and anything from color correction of making things do sort of a overblown exposure transition to distortion and bending your image, all kinds of things, you can add those effects to your clips and have them transition from being off to on with these keyframes. And then adding a cross dissolve in between two clips allows you to create a very cool custom transition. Now it's your turn. If you haven't been practicing, go ahead, download the Anthony Clip 1 and Anthony Clip 2 files from this lesson, import them into Adobe Premiere Pro, and then add your own custom transition, playing around with the different strengths of the blur and also where you put it, how long the transition is from on to off, where the transition is, and even how long the cross dissolve is. You can come up with different ways to make this a custom effect. Thanks for watching, have fun, and we'll see you in the next lesson.